We don't have many here today, but I want you to know they're working in the plants. A lot of your union people have to work through different things like this, so they're working. They're with their families, and then some of them couldn't get out. But I want you to know they're with you, and we've been working here, me, since September on these campaigns. I wanted to introduce Cassandra Scott. She's a letter carrier that's been working on the campaign. Say hi, Cassandra. Also detailed down from the IBT and doing a heck of a job on the phones is Tommy Pentacuda from the Brotherhood of Teamsters. We've also had Jackie Burke here. She's sick today, along with Rick Wood. But Jackie's an AFGE member and works at the Social Security office in Hendersonville, so she's been down working. And who else have we had? Who am I missing? Mark Brooks and Hillary Katz, and they're from the utility workers. And I want to tell you how Mark, when he first come here, the utility workers do not have any local in the state of North Carolina. They got one local in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and a few in Florida, but mainly they're up north. His president asked him where he wanted to go in phone bank, and he chose North Carolina. So he's been working on all your campaigns and didn't even have a dog in the fight, so to say. But these people have been working hard, and I was telling Mary B and the rest, I want to introduce Mary B. McMillan from the state AFL-CIO. She's the state treasurer, does a heck of a job for us. But I was telling on the phone bank Friday that we didn't get much help on the phones. We did it ourselves, the detailed staff down, which was kind of disappointing. But then when I got the numbers back, I was inspired, because we're trying to inspire the other locals to work on the floors, get information out there at the workplace, because you can phone bank, you can mail, and that's fine and good, but when you get them on the floor, you got them, and start personal conversations one-on-one. And I've seen more of that up here than I have in any election previous to this. So things are looking good for all of you. What else have I missed about us? Except my wife called me that I didn't get the dog feed. I did want to run over some numbers with you in North Carolina. Buncombe County was in the top 10 number for voter members coming to the polls at 33%. That's very good. Yancey County was in the top 5% turnout with 39 so far. Dean liked that number when he seen it. But I've got it up here, and when you come up to just say a little bit, you can kind of flip through and see your county and see how they're doing with union members. But we are getting them to the poll for you. I appreciate you coming out here today. I don't want you to think that's any disrespect. We don't have many more members here, but that's the way it is. And any meeting you go to, we have them whether they come or not, because they got good reasons for not being here. But I also want to introduce Dan McCurry, who's wrote some labor songs. And he's going to lead this off with a labor song. And then in between candidates speaking, I want you to speak a couple minutes. We don't need the campaign speech. We just, you've done that enough. We just want you to let us know how your campaigns are going, where your districts are, because people are still confused about that everywhere I go. And if there's anything you need us to work on, especially in your district, whether it be signs after work, or whatever. But Dan, if you would, lead us off in a labor song.
Well, I'm going to read you off a Democrat song. When I grew up here in the 50s, Democrats did not so much tolerate long political speeches, but they had no problems at all with long dances and long songs, because that's how they had grown up talking, and they knew everyone could give a political speech. But you had to prove yourself by singing and doing a smooth square dance. At the Farmers Federation in the wintertime on November, at the old Horse and Hound Club. No one in here I know knows what the Horse and Hound Club was, even though it was the center of Democratic politics for Buncombe County from the 30s, up until it dissolved in the mid-50s. It's pretty much where the new Inca High School is right now. And they would gather. I've got songs. I'm glad Brian is here. He's never heard my Moffat song. I named the airport after the boy. Mr. Hill has not heard because I just wrote it last week. My song for him. Terry's heard hers. But I want you to do a Democrat song. It's just got 4 lines that I want you. It's a sing-along. I don't do solos. I'm just telling you that right now. I don't believe in them. I believe people sing and they feel good about singing far better than they do about me singing. So that's why. 4 lines, a mountain Democrat, no finer way than that. To fight all greed for those with need, a mountain Democrat. The chorus goes like this, then we'll do the melody. A mountain Democrat, no finer way than that. To fight all greed for those with need, a mountain Democrat. Got all that?
Got it.
Part and parcel of an old Irish revolutionary song of the 1810s that I've messed around with. When I was young, I used to read the Revolution stories. Shelby McDowell and John Sevier did battle with the Tories. The King's men fought, but all was naught. We had not come to chat, 'cause honest toil in rocky soil grows mountain Democrats. You ready? A mountain Democrat, no finer way than that. To fight all greed with those with need, a mountain Democrat. One more time. A mountain Democrat, no finer way than that. To fight all greed for those in need, a mountain Democrat. There you go. Now we've come to this dark hour when justice is in danger, where government no more unites but seeks to make us strangers. Behind each law to crush us all smiles an aristocrat, but freedom's flame burns in our name. We're mountain Democrats. We're mountain Democrats. No finer way than that. To fight all greed for those with need. A mountain Democrat. And that's the English. If you're going to win an election in this mountain, in the next 2, 4, and 6 years, you're going to have to know the Spanish. Democrata montaña, Democrata montaña, resistir opresión por los vulnerables. Democrata montaña. Just try the first 2 lines. Democrata montaña, Democrata montaña. To resist oppression for the most vulnerable. Resistir opresión por los vulnerables. Democrata montaña, a mountain Democrat. No finer way than that. To fight all greed for those in need. A mountain Democrat. Okay, thank you.
As we wander in and out, like I said, everybody get a couple of minutes just to talk about what's happening in your campaigns, what you're going to do, who you are. We'll start with the top and come down. Since you're the only congressional candidate here, Tate ain't got here yet. Tom, you got the floor.
He's on his way.
He's coming.
Yes. I keep looking for this sunshine that Mark promised me on the phone this morning when I called over here, and I got about 10. Yeah, okay, I'm waiting. All right. I got about 10 inches of snow up where I live. I live about 1,000 feet above Hendersonville, and it was surprising when I saw this morning. But I don't know exactly what's the best approach here, but I do want to say a couple of things about my campaign. I'm grateful to the labor people for helping me put out signs. I wound up with extra signs, and they stepped up, and I'm grateful for that. I was able to speak to them down in Morganton, and I see my friend Jim Cates is here, and we had a good session down there, and I got to bore everybody to death, and it was a good time. So as for my own campaign, I realize that I'm a huge underdog. I wasn't born yesterday, but I am very hopeful. I meet people in the parking lot that I've never seen before, and they're not members of the local party that I know, and they walk up to me and they see my sign that says "Vote for Tom Hill," and they say I did, and a lot of people seek me out, and I'm grateful for that. I have met a lot of people at shopping centers and various locations like that, and introduced myself, and I really love campaigning. I want to say that whatever comes of my campaign, it's been a very positive experience in my life. I have thoroughly enjoyed it. I enjoy meeting people. I enjoy forums like this where I can say what I want to say, and it's very positive. And so I look at our candidates. We don't have in Henderson County. We don't have a single Democrat running for county commissioner. They're all. I voted this morning, and it wasn't a surprise to me. I knew there weren't any on there. And we need to encourage Democrats to step up and run for office. We need that. And so people say thank you for running, and I feel embarrassed by that, because I feel like I just jumped into an open slot there, and other people could have jumped in, and they didn't. And we had one fellow over in Barnardsville, nice guy, Keith Rule, who ran against me in the primary, and nobody else seemed to be willing to run. And so we have to ask ourselves, what is the problem? I want to close with just one small story about. I'm always arguing with Republicans, and I do have friends who are Republicans, and I'm always arguing with Republicans about the good old days. Let's return to the good old days. The good old days. What they mean is that I want today's modern conveniences, but I don't want the obligations and the regulations that go with them. I just want you to get out of my way so I can make all this money, but I really don't want to pay any taxes, and I don't want you checking me out to see that I'm not putting impure things in my product and things like that. That's what they really mean. So when they talk about the good old days, I remind them that I'm older than most of them and most of you. And I remember the good old days, and the good old days were not. People in that era did without. There was no such thing as Medicare. There were no emergency services. My brother and I were gathering corn in the field when I was a lad, and we saw a biplane that was. It's the end of World War II, and this biplane was circling around, and he lost power. And to our amazement, he came all the way down and crashed in the yard of a house about 100 yards from where we were working. And we went over there to see. We were like the second or third people on the scene, and we went over there to see what was happening with the guys. And one guy was lying in the back seat. It was a twin-seat aircraft. The guy in the back seat was dead. His head had hit into a part of the instrument when he crashed, and he was dead. The guy in the front was not dead, but he was clearly in pain, and so every one of us didn't have telephones. We ran to the nearest house, called on a phone, and by the time it was a half an hour before the quote emergency service got there, and when they arrived, they didn't have any real facilities to help keep this guy alive, although he did live for another day. And nowadays we expect if you have a problem, you just go punch 911 on your cell phone, and here come these emergency responders. Yes, I want all that, but boy, I sure don't want to pay for it. And somebody has to pay, folks. We want to fight wars over there in the Mideast, but we want tax cuts. Okay, it's insane. We have an unrealistic expectation of society, and yet my days were where we did without a lot of things were very good compared to my father's day. My father told me when he was a young lad, he and his family, a large family, lived down in Polk County, and he slept in the upstairs of a log type home. And he said that when he would wake up in the wintertime, there would often be snow that had blown in on his straw bed, and he would brush that off and go downstairs and make a fire. So we have very good lives, and we're going to have to pay for it, and we're going to have to stand up to these people that trash what we stand for, and we're going to have to tell them that they have to pay their fair share of taxes. So with that, I'll shut up and let somebody else talk. I'm sorry that Tate didn't precede me. I could have warmed up a little bit if you'd been here.
You were older. We believe in seniority.
Yeah, well, Tate does too. He's here now. He's here now. So I wanted to say, don't drink that coffee unless you've got cast iron teeth.
You want to sing?
Why, sure.
Yeah, let's do.
Let's take.
Texas Cruise.
Batter up, Tate.
I'll sing that. I'll sing
Tom's song?
I'll sing Tom's. Let's say he's ready.
Oh, just tell him how
He's clearly dressed for a
He's
safari.
dressed for it.
just all up.
All right, Tate, you've only got 1 minute. Tom used up the rest of your time. But since this is being filmed, and we're trying to build up labor history in this area, that's why we're filming this.
Okay.
And at one time, a lot of you don't know this, at one time in probably the 30s, Buncombe County was more unionized, or the western North Carolina mountains were more unionized than anywhere in North Carolina. This was the hot spot. And we've went from that to one of the low spots. We're still fighters, but we're a long way from what we was in the 30s. And it's been just a tear down from businesses and management as a whole. And also because it's state for union members. The unions in western North Carolina, and I've looked at all of them, and Mary B's probably looked at them for the state as well, they're 50-50 on their membership. They're Republicans and they're Democrats. But what we're trying to get it back to is the old Democrats and the old Republicans. Because at that point, they were not that far apart. One was progressive, one was conservative, and somewhere they met in the middle. What we got now is not like that. But we do want our union members to know, and I spread this when we go, because all of them say, oh, only thing a union does is Democrats. We don't do Democrats or we don't do Republicans. We don't care. We're for labor-endorsed candidates. And every candidate that's appearing here today has filled in a questionnaire, supported union workers, and the Republican counterparts either failed to reply or didn't reply well. And so that endorsement procedure we hold pretty dear and make sure to follow up on it. So we want our memberships around the country to know that. And we also encourage our Republican membership to go back and start working in their precincts where the Republican Party will no longer try to crucify labor. And if we can get to that point, maybe we can get back to where we was. With that, I'm going to introduce Tate McQueen, congressional candidate for the 10th District.
Well, there's no heat on the bus, so I'm still a little bit cold. As you know, I'm a teacher, and one of the highlights of my curriculum personally is teaching the history of our unions. It starts with trying to reach young people and let them know if you enjoy a weekend and the fact that we have a 40-hour work week and an 8-hour work day and that we have workman's compensation and that we have people fighting for fair wages that are commensurate with the work that we do and also the respect that we have for working class families, that we need to be looking at the lessons of history so we understand where we are today. And I had a very enjoyable time with Mr. McHenry at the SIBO debate because it was about empathy, sympathy, and compassion. 3 things. They talk about business, I talk about people. They talk about profit, I talk about the environment. At the end of this, it's about working class people, Republicans, Democrats, and independents. It's about their families. And when you have a congressman who votes against minimum wage at $7.25, who votes against the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act, who votes against supplemental nutrition assistance for hungry North Carolinians, including 51,000 veterans and their families, you have the epitome of disconnect. But we have to get back to the Taft-Hartley Act in the 1950s, which was the shot across the bow. This was the beginning of the end of our unions. And it coincides, ironically, with another period in our history, which I reminded Mr. McHenry of, because as a teacher, I've been talking about the 50th anniversary of the Civil Rights Act. I've been talking about the 50th anniversary of Freedom Summer. Now, while we've been shivering, there were people who were suffering so that they could vote, so that we could vote. And there were those that shed blood for this, and there were those that didn't come out of Mississippi. And then we have people here in this county named Isaac Coleman, for example, who said at the end of that summer, the work is not done, and stayed for 5 more years. Now, that is a type of commitment that we have to one another. And I was reminding Patrick that 60 years ago, we thought we were closing a very dark period in American history, and it was led by one Joseph McCarthy. And it was fear and fear-mongering. Fear-mongering with children who happen to be crossing the border, because we don't have we have a free trade system in Central and South America. We need fair trade, because in the absence of stable economies, you have cartels that fill the vacuum. And where you have those cartels, we have violence that none of us can comprehend. And as a father of 2 children, I'm not sure I wouldn't do the exact same thing. And if it required me crossing a border to take care of my kids, I'm not saying I wouldn't do that. In fact, I probably would. But when we were talking about that dark chapter, with McCarthyism being tied to the approach that's always been used with unions. If you're a union guy, if you're a union gal, then that means you're a socialist and a communist. They did it with Big Bill Haywood. They did it with Samuel Gompers. They did it with A. Philip Randolph. We have a civil rights movement that was born in the 1930s because A. Philip Randolph, who started the Brotherhood of Sleeper Car Porters, was willing to have a march on D.C. to tell FDR, if you keep us from working in the defense industry, we're going to march on D.C. And that was the beginning, because other people will pick up on that 20 years later and have bus boycotts. And we'll have Cesar Chavez with the migrant workers. But I asked him directly, if you have all these votes, in the spirit of Joseph Welch, who asked one seminal question, have you no sense of decency, sir? My question for Patrick was, have you no sense of compassion, sir? Because when you don't pay people living wages and you vote against them when they're hungry, and then you vote against them from having the health care that you get in Washington, D.C., I can tell you the answer, because it was a rhetorical question. He doesn't have any compassion. And that's just the way that they've been taught in terms of their leadership. Not Republican people, because I have Republican family members, I have independent family members, and I have Democratic family members, but what I have is a family. And I look out here and I see other members of my family. And we have to take some time to get to know one another, because when people buy into certain things about one another, then what makes them any different than those that were pointing their finger at Bill Haywood, or the folks at Haymarket Square during the bombing, or the folks that stood up at the Triangle Factory shirtwaist fire. So we have a lot of work to do, but it's righteous work to do. And in closing, I'll say this. The evidence was in what happened after the debate. When we were all leaving, I said to Mr. McHenry when he was walking out, I said, Patrick, I want you to meet Aaron Penland. He's a retired U.S. Marine Corps. He lost his dad and 8 aunts and uncles to cancer living within 1 mile of the CTS site. And Mr. McHenry said, sorry, we're leaving, maybe we can talk later. And did not shake the Marine's hand, did not say, I'm sorry for your suffering, but walked on out. That is the type of disconnect that I'm running against, that we're running against. And if we arc back to our true nature, which is being good to one another, then we're going to be just fine. And we're going to be able to tackle the problems that we have, and they are serious. But we have to have people that are willing to play on the same team. People who get it. People who want to work together. And don't buy into the lowest common denominator math, when oftentimes there's a motive. And with the unions, that motive was to use slander and libel and all kinds of other ways to assassinate people's character and their reputation and threaten their families and their job. And I can tell you that those that did this before, those that went through that, set an example for me to follow. And I'm truly honored to be here in a location that gets back to who we are, and that's advocating for one another, advocating for workers' rights, advocating for workplace safety. And so with that, let's get out Tuesday and let's do this thing, okay?
Yeah, give us the tape.
In the 1920s, now we'll start this way. When you go out to the VA hospital, to the western North Carolina part of the state archives, you walk in, there's a whole gallery of pictures on child labor by Hines. Over in a corner, there's a tiny little pen. That pen is there because it was the pen the president used to sign the first national child labor bill in the country. Why is it there? Because the conference that came together to pass that legislation came here to Asheville. They came here to Asheville because labor had made the point. Not that there wasn't child labor all over the mills, here there were. But labor stood up against child labor. The churches stood up against child labor. The community stood up against that kind of child labor. And so when that bill was signed, it was signed because a coalition came here to Asheville from all over the country and said, here's the example we want to follow. And so they did. We went backwards from that point. And I was so glad to hear what Tate was talking about because we're in so many ways still there now. I was asked only a week ago to write a song about the 11th Congressional District Republican candidate. And I did. It's got a chorus for you too, and what you sing is much simpler than the last time. It just has two different phrases. The first one says, bring him back. And then the second verse says, bring him down. Got that? I'll do the rest. I'll stop there. And the words are pretty much, I could have just taken what the last two speakers have said and said, that's how we'll sing it. Mark Meadows went to Washington to close our country down. Cost us $30 billion and he's still messing around. With 2 more years of spreading fears, the words no one can trust. Bring Meadows back from Washington, he's just not helping us. Bring him back, bring him back, bring him back, bring him back. We need those who are building up instead of tearing down. Got millions in his pockets and billions for his friends. So we all will vote for Tom Hill, our country to defend, to make our children healthier. Mark Meadows just says no, but shovels out the tax breaks so rich folks' wealth can grow. Mark's on top of his mountain, that's where he wants to stay. It's time now to bring him down. Vote on election day. Bring him down, bring him down, bring him down, bring him down. Bring Meadows from his mountain, see that mess he's left around. Got millions in his pockets and billions for his friends. So we all will vote for Tom Hill. Thanks God you got such a simple name. Our country to defend. Bring him down, bring him down, bring him down. Bring Meadows from his mountain, see the mess he's left around. Got millions in his pockets and billions for his friends. So we all will vote for Tom Hill, our country to defend.
Thank you.
And Mary B, she's out of the room, I think. She is mad at me for not doing phone banking today. But I tell you what, I'm going to reach more people up here in Western North Carolina. What we're doing with Avram's assistance is we're making this little ditty. He's the greatest editor I've ever seen. And we're going to edit a video, and then before the final day of the election, we're going to send that around to all the presidents and let them send it out to their membership on video. So this lets our membership see you and let you talk about labor, common workers, and how you're there for us. So that's what we're trying to do. We're going to try it, see how it works. Final push to the poll. Now, with that, we've got both our congressional people. Now I think we ought to bring up maybe our acting senator right now who's running for a permanent thing. I think that's right, Terry Van Dam.
The other day I talked with a group of second graders, and one of the questions they asked me was how many times I'd been elected, and I had to tell them 0, and they were like, but I'm hoping to change that on Tuesday. And I am very grateful to you all for all your help. I know you're calling, I know you're going door to door, I know you're putting up signs, and that means a lot to me, not just to me. Before I had this job, I used to occasionally go to Raleigh to talk to Senator Nesbitt about women's and children's issues, and he would lean back in his chair after listening very politely to me, and he'd lean back and he'd say, "Get me more Democrats." So I'm also grateful for the work you're doing to get others elected, especially Jane Hips. We only have 17 Democrats right now in the Senate, 17 out of 50, and we're going to fix that. We're going to break the veto-proof majority, and Jane's going to be there with me come Tuesday because of all the help you've given us. So thank you very much. And really, you know, it's kind of hard to follow a speech like Tate's, but I'm very grateful. I am a member now of the North Carolina State Employees Association, and very proud of that. Very proud of the work you all are doing, and just grateful to be here with you all and to take advantage of this energy. But I'll be short and let you get back to hearing from everybody else. Thanks.
Yeah, I do. I wrote a song for
Sing one for me.
Well, I wrote one of my first songs for Terry, but no, I'm not going to. And now, I couldn't find the words. I mean, we'll just have to do it. It's to the tune that she'll be coming around the mountain. You all learned that when you were children growing up in your mama's knee. Terry's coming from the mountains. Here she comes. Here she comes. There you go. What a dream for all our people can become.
Here she comes.
She'll learn well from Brother Martin. That means one thing for certain. Everybody will know exactly where she's from. Where she's from. Look at all the folks there with her. What a crowd.
What a crowd.
She's a senator to make the mountains proud.
Mountains proud.
Full of grit and lots of gristle. Be prepared to see her bristle when she's fighting for our people. She's unbound. She's unbound. For your kids' good education, she's with you.
She's with you.
Never compromise their future, that's their due.
That's her due.
Tar Heel schools once were thriving, now our teachers are striving because the legislature's got more red than blue. Red than blue. Last verse. There's 4 more, but it's too many. Got our mountains in her heart, and so she must. So she must fight for all the ones who put in her their trust. Put their trust in her promise to defend us against the autocrats who'd bend us and grind the hopes of all her people into dust. Into dust. Last verse. She'll be coming around the mountains. Here she comes.
Here she comes.
What a dream for all our people can become. She's learned well from Brother Martin, and that means one thing for certain. Everyone will know exactly where she's from. Thank you.
This is going to be a fun video to send out. I can tell you that right now. Now, let's see who we go from here. Dane, you're running for House. Jane, what are you running for? State Senate down in North Carolina. Let's welcome to the podium Miss Jane Hips.
I just want to say thank you for having me here, and thank you for your support financially and for the phone banking. It's just wonderful. And I'm from the 50th district. This is the 7 western counties, starting with Haywood, going all the way to the border at Tennessee with Cherokee County. But I am working for the middle class and the hardworking people. And the first thing I want to work on when I get there is tax reform, because I think that's the crux of the problem that we have in North Carolina and the reason that we don't have a budget that covers the needs for our teachers and for our working class people. I went into a bookstore recently just to buy a newspaper to see what was going on, see what they were saying about me, because I couldn't get it all on the website. And this lady came up to me. I'd never seen her before, and I noticed she had an accent, foreign accent. People think I've got an accent too if I go up north. But she said, I'm from Cuba, and I'm a United States citizen. And I moved here because of all the problems in Cuba. And I see that beginning to happen in the United States. And that is that we have such a divide between the hardworking people and the wealthy people. She said, thank goodness our family had money. But I don't want to see that happen in the United States. And we have to be careful that that doesn't happen. And the tax reform is creating that divide. I've been into 3 debates with my opponent. He doesn't have much respect for us. When he was talking about teachers, he said the teachers could send their raises back. If they didn't like where they were living and teaching, they could go to Connecticut. If they couldn't do the math about their raise, they didn't need to be in the classroom. And I came back and said, I asked how many people were teachers in that audience, and I would say 2/3 of them were. And they raised their hand, and I said, well, I want you to know that if I go to Raleigh, that I will be your colleague, and I consider all the children to be the future of Western North Carolina and this state. That was put on video, and it's had over 29,000 hits on it. Now, so people know how he feels about that. I had a debate this week, and the question came up about minimum wage, and he was totally against minimum wage. And he thought that should be an agreement between the employer and the employee, and if the employee wasn't satisfied, they could just go work somewhere else. And I think he said they could get a second job as well. And that, again, is a lack of respect. I think a person working 40 hours a week should be able to feed and clothe and take care of their families. And we need to do something about that. Another area that was addressed was hunger, and he didn't seem to have a connection with hunger and the fact that there wasn't enough money there to provide adequate food for our families and our children. Our children are living, 25% of our children are living in poverty now, and that's unsuitable. We don't need one child living in poverty as far as that goes. And then fracking's another issue, and he doesn't seem to understand why people in North Carolina are not satisfied with the fact that they're going to provide 382 jobs for North Carolinians to ruin our drinking water and our air. I just don't understand this man. Jackson County gave him a name. They call him Dr. Frankenstein. And as I sit close by him, and he is a dentist, he's an orthodontist, but I'd like to look in his mouth and see if there are any wisdom teeth there, because I don't think they're there. I do know that he has incisors, though, because he's just cut and ripped the budget to pieces. So I want to go there and send him home. I want to put a heart into the Senate and take care of our people. That's where I want to be. To let you know how the early voting is going, Democrats are voting more frequently than Republicans. In 4 of the counties, 4 out of 7, I'm ahead. The largest county, Haywood, I'm ahead. So it's looking good. We've got to keep working. 2 negative mailers have come out that are not true. In fact, they're saying that I'm going to raise taxes on the middle class and hardworking people. I don't know how he's twisted this to just the opposite. On both of those mailers, my picture is with Obama. I don't know Obama. I've never met him, and I hope Obama's not upset that my picture's with him. But we've got to win this thing, folks, and let's work hard. And thank you so much for what the AFL-CIO is doing. Thank you.
Do a fracking song?
Do a fracking song.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Now, I just wrote this 2 days ago. Give me a second, yes. Most of the candidates have spoken out strongly against fracking, and we needed one. Now, it's a sing-along as well, I hope. If you started out that way. Here we go. The old civil rights song, "We Shall Not Be Moved." We're going to just change a few words there. We shall not be fracked. We shall not be. Just like those hills upon the mother water, we shall not be fracked. We're on our way to Raleigh, and we shall not be fracked. To keep the ashes flowing, we shall not be fracked. Just like the hills upon the mother water, we shall not be fracked. It's got lots of verses. We won't stand by Bad River, 'cause we shall not be fracked. We'll block it with our bodies, we shall not be fracked. Just like the hills upon the mother water, we shall not be fracked.
Trying to go in some kind of order here, but I know candidates got to come and go. Ellen, I think you had something you had to run to, or?
Yes, if that's okay.
And Brian, did you have to run somewhere too?
I've got to be out here by 3:30.
What time is it?
2:50.
Ellen, you're going to have to be quick.
Okay, I'll be there. I'll be there.
I'm just teasing. See, I'm trying to keep Brian here as long as I can because we're trying to educate him in labor.
Okay, so I'll just talk along.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you. I'm Ellen Frost, and I'm running for re-election in District 2 in Buncombe County. And I am so grateful for all you do, what you've done, not only for our campaign, but historically what labor has done. You know, we have an aggressive ground game. We are phone banking Monday night. If anybody wants to come out to Black Mountain, we're going to have a big phone bank. But our goal is that we don't wake up on Wednesday morning and have anybody say Commissioner Merrill. And you know, right now in Buncombe County, our two biggest employers, Mission Hospital and Ingalls, don't pay a living wage to the majority of their employees. When Buncombe County announced our initiative against domestic violence, my opponent put a thing on Facebook and said, the reason we have domestic violence in our county is because we're pushing too hard for living wages. My friend Commissioner Jones took a screenshot of that. She also
Don't look too hard.
She also has said that we can just get rid of the fire tax and have bake sales to support our fire districts. So, you know, in the last 2 years, we have accomplished a tremendous amount. We have been like a little engine that could and stood up against Raleigh, but if we lose the majority, it will be just like Raleigh. These folks have already said they want to repeal zoning. They don't want to fund non-for-profits. And any thoughts of working with Mission Hospital and Ingalls to get folks up to a living wage, it won't matter because they don't think it's important. So, you know, we say every election's important, but I can't think of one election that is going to impact the lives of Buncombe County residents the way this will. I mean, it is drastic. The differences in us are too numerous to mention, but you know, I don't want to take a lot of time, even though, you know, I was told to keep Brian here long. But I'm just thankful for all the hard work. If you can extend hard work, good wishes, and spreading the word, because, you know, I got criticized for saying we want to keep Buncombe County blue. Well, I'm saying it again. We want to keep Buncombe County blue. And so once again, thank you. I appreciate everything you do. Thank you for the financial contribution. Thank you for all the hard work. And I was raised by people who supported every union, and I knew what unions were before before I knew what playgrounds were at some point. So I want to thank you. I'm very indebted and grateful for all of your help. Thank you.
All right, I guess I can't keep him off stage no longer. Brian Turner, but I'm going to tell a little ditty about him since we're filming this. There's no, for every postal worker, which is my craft, that's out there that don't support Brian, something's wrong, because he actually come in that plant when Mark Meadows and our Senator Burr would not even come in and look at it, and looked at it and is trying to help postal workers. And he told me, even though he's running at a state level, ground building, and all our state candidates as well. Federal government candidates are run by what you do in North Carolina. And you can raise a whole lot of cane with a federal candidate, even though you're a state candidate. With that, Brian, come on up here.
Yes, so I owe the beginning of my education to Mark because he was kind enough to give me a tour. My education continues when I see Tommy at the gym a couple times a week, and he beats things into my head. And then I go to the post office and I see Wesley there, and he continues with my education. So you've got me covered. Thanks, Mark. This has been a really interesting last couple of weeks during this election, and it reminds me of, and since Tate's still here, I'll talk a little bit about history. In 1942, at the Battle of Bataan, a chaplain said, "There are no atheists in foxholes." I have come to the conclusion that there are no true conservatives during election season. And I say that because what they've been holding on to these last couple years all of a sudden seems to be changing. Tom Tillis thinks that Medicaid expansion is now a good idea. Yeah. My opponent is attacking me about special interest groups. Meanwhile, he's cashing checks from the Koch brothers and Duke Energy. And I've been generously offered support from this group here, and I very much appreciate that. I've been able to draw a sharp contrast between me and my opponent in this way. And finally, what I think is kind of the coup de grace for Representative Moffitt is that in the last 2 weeks, he has come out in support of the frontline workers of the Asheville Police Department and helping them get organized against management. Now, if that isn't the end of all hypocrisy from that gentleman, I don't know what is. The problem is, for soon-to-be former Representative Tim Moffitt, it's too little too late. The last week and a half, I've spent probably 6-8 hours at the polls out here at Sardis Road, where I wish we were meeting. South Buncombe Library, Leicester Library, Skyland Fire Department, Pole Creek Baptist Church, and on more than one occasion, actually more times than I can keep track of, I've had folks come out and they say, "I'm a Republican and I voted for you."
Yay!
Because these folks have come to realize that Representative Moffitt and Presnell and Davis, they don't really represent the people of North Carolina.
No, they don't.
They aren't even good Republicans. They represent themselves, and they represent the big corporate interests that have bankrolled their campaigns.
Yep.
So I'm very, very thankful for the support of this group, of all the phone banking that's been happening, to see that Buncombe County is on that top 10 list. And I hope that everyone who's in here today will continue that effort, continue to get out the vote, get membership out there to vote. Hopefully they'll vote for the folks who are in this room. But either way, I hope they just get out there and they participate and have their voices heard. You know, they're part of a union because they want their voices heard. And they know that when they speak together, they speak louder and stronger. So hopefully they'll get out there, if they haven't done so already, on Tuesday and work to speak together, and they'll speak loudly and they'll speak strongly. So thank you, Mark, for giving that chance. Yeah?
I believe you've got a little union background in your blood. Tell everybody about that one.
I do, yes. Thanks, Mark. My grandfather worked in the paint shop of ENCA for 44 years. And was a big part of that union. In fact, I was over at Reeves Chapel pancake breakfast this morning, and a man came up to me and said, "I worked with your grandfather." He went on to say he was a good man, and I appreciated that. But it's true, and and by my grandfather being a part of the union, I think it really influenced my family and our family's business. We are a manufacturer here in town. And we've always made sure that we do what's right for the people who work for us. We've always treated people fairly. We've always paid a good wage with strong benefits, medical, vacation, and we've always worked in partnership with the people who are there, who are getting the work done. And that's how I think it should be. Thank you. And that's where, and now you've got me going. And that's where, when they talk about making North Carolina a business-friendly state, they don't really mean business-friendly, they mean corporate-friendly. And there's a difference. There's a difference between a small business. There's a difference between a local business and a large multinational, multi-billion-dollar corporation. And we've got to decide as a state, who do we want to be attracting? What kind of businesses do we want to be bringing here? Do we want to bring folks like New Belgium, who are going to remediate a brownfield and are going to be offering good competitive wages? Or do we want to bring people down to the eastern part of North Carolina, where they're going to pay as small as they can get, and they're going to cast people off like something out of the jungle? So, when I get to Raleigh, hopefully, I'm going to be working to make North Carolina a business-friendly state again. And we can focus on the locally owned, locally controlled folks who we see in the grocery store, who we see at the gas station, and who care about our community and not just the bottom line. So, thanks, Mark. Appreciate it. Thank you all for having us here.
You want your Muppet song?
In just a second. Now, if you haven't seen me on TV, yesterday? I know how it is to speak for 20 minutes to a reporter, and then I think I got 20 seconds. Ivan's going to be cutting this. I want this in the cut, Ivan.
In the part that's cut or the part that's...
Well, might be either one. But, we have the best union members up here in Western North Carolina that are working their hearts out. And I remember years ago having another speech with a politician who was getting a hard time because his business wasn't unionized. Well, his business wasn't nothing but him and his brothers, But I wanted to make the point to politicians and the public that unions, we don't go in there and force ourselves on people as what's being portrayed to kind of get unionism out. Unions are brought in by the people, and the unions are those people. They're not a special interest group. They're a conglomerate of people working together for their rights and for the benefit of their families. But I want to make that point clear that, we come in when employed, but we've got a bunch of fine employers around here that treat their employees well. But I want to also make a background, and I made this point in Silva when I spoke down there. The unions are the last hope for all workers, because whether you're union or whether you're not, those non-union employers conform to rights that labor unions have gained them to keep the unions from coming in there and giving them full rights. So if the unions cease to exist, the rights for all workers will cease to exist. Now, have we got any other candidates that are here that got to get out of here quick? All right, now we're going to go by seniority. This is interesting. Dean, who's older, you or Jim? Or Norm? I got that Norm in there too. Is Joe Sam in here?
Is Joe the oldest one?
Is he the oldest one?
Why don't we go by
we got to go by seniority.
we'll go by the number?
We'll go by the number. Who's got the lowest number in their house district?
113.
116, 118.
Jim? 86.
86.
Come on up here. And this is one that people don't see much, Jim Cates.
Yeah, good to see you. I just noticed that I'm running in the smallest slice of this Western North Carolina Labor Council pie. There are like 36 precincts in Burke County, and I'm running in 32 of them and all that. How many people read the book, The Magnificent Obsession? Everybody read that? Remember the doctor in there, he found this really poor kid, and he said, I want to help you become a doctor. And he did, but what you can't do, you can't tell anybody about that. Don't tell them how you got there. Well, that little kid grew up and became a doctor, and then he found a kid that was poor, and he helped him become a doctor. Can't tell anybody and do that. Well, what happened was, I have a real affinity for people that don't have a lot of money. Kind of same thing happened to me. I'm from Bowie's Creek down near Raleigh. I walked out of the post office one day when I had about 3 or 4 weeks to go, finishing up at Bowie's Creek High School. And the Lonnie Small, the business manager of the college, came out and said, Jim, you coming down to Campbell? Campbell, by the way, was about as far as 3 lengths of this building from my house. I just walked right up there. And I said, I don't see how. There are 3 of us kids, part of a broken family. My folks split up when I was in the 3rd grade. Had a younger sister, younger brother, and they sent us all to Bowie's Creek to live with a little old aunt. In a house, by the way, that didn't have any running water and it didn't have any heat. I used from the 3rd grade on, I had to go out and take a bucket of water, prime the pump, get a couple buckets of muddy water, take it back to the kitchen, let the muddle settle down, so supper time, you could pour the clear water over and cook. My sister, some have heard this before, Tom has, it's like a nightmare. She had to go back, get the water, go back, let it settle down, go put paper in the stove, put wood in the stove, heat it all up, take it to a little room, have a little bitty tub, sit in the tub, and take a bath. Now, fortunately for my brother and I, we didn't take baths, so we didn't have to worry about that. In the summer, it was pretty good because we went swimming in the creek, so at least, 6 or 8 times during the summer, we were pretty clean. The rest of the time, pretty messy. So anyway, the doctor treated us for free. The dentist would take us over 6 miles away on Saturday morning, fix our teeth for free. The community helped us out. Lonnie Small said, you come on down to Campbell and charge everything to me. I washed all the windows in the dorms. I mowed grass. I did all that kind of stuff for 2 years during the summer, and I paid it all back. So it's free. Then I took off and went to Washington, D.C. I was up there, worked for the government for 1 year, and saved up money to go to Appalachian. Went to Appalachian mainly because it was a little bit cheaper. And then on the other side, there were like 10 girls to every guy, and I thought that was pretty cool. So wasn't so hot for the girls, but pretty good deal for me. So anyway, I got through all that. To get through all this other stuff and everything, I'm running against a candidate who's a Harvard lawyer. And so when we have a forum together, I always say, we got this Harvard dude against an Appalachian dude. I'm over here. I said, which one is like, the most common person kind of guy? He has 70,000 bucks to work with. So I decided I will not spend 1 penny. So far I haven't spent a dime. I said, if you want me to run, you're going to have to pay, or dance, you're going to have to pay the fiddler. It's $207 a file. Somebody paid it. I haven't paid that. As of yesterday, 10,130 some people have waved at me. As of yesterday, something like 10,000 people have voted in Burke County. There are 51,000 registered voters in Burke County, Democrats, Republican, all of it. 10,000. I have waved at more people beside the road than people have voted. Now, this guy that gave me a ride over here, I got a new Leaf, and it had 90-some miles on it when I left, and it was 55 miles to the Chamber of Commerce in Morganton, up here, so I could plug it in, so I could get back home. Okay, because it's all electric. When I got up here, the mountain ate up all my juice. I had 3 miles to go, and I just made it to the Chamber of Commerce and plugged it in. Hallelujah. That's it. But I'll get back home and all that. So anyway, in the back of that, I have these pictures that are, somebody took a picture of me, and it's this tall, in the same outfit, basically, and I had it laminated, and I had it put on cardboard, and so every day, I started about a month ago. Went over to Chesterfield School out there. When the parents let their kids off, I was over in the ditch. How are you? How are you? 42 people. That was 42 people. Remember, I'm at 10,000 now. The next day I went to another school. 335 people came by. How are you? Then I went to Freedom High. Hello. Every school all through the county. Yesterday I needed about 800 and some to hit 10,000. So I went over on this main drag coming in by Roses in Morganton off I-40, and I stood out there. And I said, well, I'll get 300 or 400. I stood there for less than an hour and a half, and 1,200 people came by. And I don't count them. I mean, somebody said, hey, do that. You got a little clicker? And I just count them. And if they come by and they don't look at me, or they don't wave, or they don't honk, or something, I don't count them. I only count the ones that give me a little smile or some kind of stuff. It's amazing. I mean, it really is a neat experience. What's going to happen, though, if I happen to accidentally win, it's going to really mess up politics around a little bit, because everybody spent all this money, you know, and all that stuff. They have signs all over everywhere, and I have never liked road signs. When I did them, I had very few. I found 6 that I had from 2 years ago when I ran from this guy. He beat me a little over a couple thousand votes. So this time, well, you know, to get out the vote thing, Burke County believes in that. They have 8 or 10 people right now in the Burke County headquarters calling people. They have found out all the people that voted that came from Raleigh, all the Democrats that have voted for the since 1990. They found out who voted half the time. They know how many independents voted half time. They know how many voted all the time. And they have mailed out 9,000 mailers with the candidates in it to all the independents. They have called over 5,000 of the people that voted halftime. They assume the people that vote are going to be there. So we think, I hope, that if we can follow that plan and you keep up with my Mickey Mouse plan and some of the other stuff. So I figure there's 51,000 registered voters, and I have waved at 10,000 cars, most of which had 2 people, and I only counted cars. So I figure that's 20,000. That's like, 20%, 30, 40% of it already. I have 4,000 people on Facebook, and I bug the crap out of them on there. Every day I put stuff on there and all of that. So and I'll close with a quick thing that I wrote a book of poems last year, and this year I'm writing another one. It's called A Poetic Diary, and I have written 425. It's going to be 500. That's going to be it. This is on Facebook yesterday. Vote for me is my earnest plea. I'd like to have a chance to serve as Burke County's as a rep, so as to channel all my pep. This will be my last shot at public office, unless I win, and then 2 years from now, we'll do it all over again.
I don't know if he brought one, but you got to see this if he didn't. Jim, did you bring your little one of them little wooden buttons?
Shoot, I had, what happened, what he's talking about, 4 years ago I ran for the Senate, and I had about 1,000 wooden nickels. And then I didn't use them, so 2 years later I ran for the House. And so I said, man, and I took a black thing and I tried to black it out, and I tried to print in there with white, and it looked crappy. So I got on the eBay and I ordered about 1,000 little Monopoly houses, and I glued the little bitty Monopoly houses over the word Senate, and that's what I gave to the local county.
I had to bring that up because I know that me and Tom's talked about this before. Our local candidates, what was it, Tom? Kind of like going to the feed trough after everything's eaten. Kay's kind of sucked up all the money. But she's in a huge financial race, and we understand it. But the candidates, we're working for you still, and we want you to know that. And we know you're running on limited budgets, and we appreciate it. Because all of you have stood behind Labor, and Labor will stand behind you. All right, now, I want to introduce somebody, Hillary Chiz. I want to introduce her because she's been working with the utility workers, and between her and Tommy, they can put out more phone calls than anybody I've ever seen.
Tommy will teach
And Cassandra too, she can sweet talk 'em when she's on there, but she's doing data entry.
But I'm a retired steelworker.
Retired steelworker. Now whose house district's up?
I'm 113, Joe, you are? I like to hear you.
We got you for a while, ain't we, Joe Sam? All right. Norm,
Okay, well,
come on up here.
I'm pretty loquacious, so you better watch out.
That's an understatement of the century.
It is. It's the understatement of the century. Well, first of all, you know, we talk about, is Tate gone already? Poor Tate. Tate, you're still here. Let's talk a little bit about history. Believe the year was 1769. Anybody remember that date? 1769, city of Charleston, there was a young boy. I'm guessing young meaning probably less than 50. And so there's this young boy who refuses to do the work in his print shop and goes on strike. It's the first recorded strike in the history of the United States of America. And by refusing to work, he did not lose his job. He got a pay increase and things got better for him. So the labor movement began almost in dinosaur days here in the United States. And I think that's pretty darn remarkable. One thing since we're here and we're talking to AFL-CIO folks, as well as to anybody who gets to look at that someday, I think one of the things that hasn't been said yet is that in the history of the United States, our greatest times of prosperity were at times when our unions were at their greatest strength. Think about that. Think about the times we've had. When our unions got together and started to work, it built a strong middle class. When the middle class gets strong and stronger because of the work of improved working conditions, improved salaries, improved benefits, etc. When all those things go up, our middle class grows. When we have a strong middle class, we have more taxpayers. We have fewer people needing the benefits of tax care from our government, either the state or federal government. Strong unions, strong economy, strong country. All goes hand in hand together, I guess. I'm a school principal. Change the subject. I'm a school principal. And every morning when my kids come to school, we play music in my school. And every afternoon before they go home, we play music again at the end of the day. I try to play things they don't know, things they haven't likely heard before. Ironically, last Thursday morning, I guess it was, I started the day by playing them a piece from a Broadway musical called Newsies. And Newsies is a musical about a bunch of kids. It's based on a true story. The music, of course, has nothing to do with reality. But the story was a real story about newspaper delivery boys selling newspapers in the streets of the cities, who decided to go on strike because their wages were so incredibly low. So I told the kids that's what the song came from, and it was about people going on strike, and they went on strike for the purpose of improving their lives and their working conditions, etc. All wonderful stuff. Well, that day at lunch, the kids got mad at one of the cafeteria workers, and they decided to go on strike. And so I thought, now how do you handle that? So I said, well, here at Black Mountain Elementary, we don't strike. So it was a lesson learned. I won't mention that word too loud to the kids again in the future, for who knows where it will lead. But I ran for office because of my school. I have a person in my school, some people in my school who have suffered terribly financially at the hands of our government here in North Carolina, certainly in regards to pay. I am grateful, just as grateful as I can be, that some of our younger teachers have gotten some nice raises, and I'm happy for them for that. But the cost has been tremendous. One of my colleague next door at the school, Black Mountain Primary School, actually has a teacher in her school, a senior teacher, whose pay raise was $186 less than he was getting before. So he has benefited greatly from the pay raises that all of our teachers have gotten, that our people in the legislature are so desperately proud of today. And they are desperate. They're desperate because they're telling us stories and they're telling us lies. I'm sorry to say it so bluntly. But we are living in a time when legislators are not being honest with the people. And in particular, my opponent is one of them. And it's sad to me that teachers have to do without adequate instructional supplies, that people have to lose jobs, teachers losing jobs, teacher assistants positions disappearing, And why? Because we have people up there in our legislature right now who see it as their mission in life, I believe, to privatize education, to close down an institution that has been responsible for the greatest accomplishments of our country. People ask, now you should know I'm not worried about my career. I'm getting ready to retire in a couple of years. My school will last that long. But if we keep Republicans in office right now, I can't promise some of those young teachers in my school that they will have a career as an educator. I don't think we can make that promise anymore. That's why in the newspaper this morning, the Times News had an interesting story saying that some 96,000 teachers have either left the state over the last few years or given up teaching as a career in North Carolina. That is a frightening number. It's frightening because it doesn't speak well for the future of our children and their growth. A little story about NASA. There was a time when the National Aeronautics and Space Administration would only hire mathematicians who were trained and who were American citizens. There was a time. Now they can't even find mathematicians in the United States anymore to work for NASA. And so NASA is having to hire people from all over, wherever they can get people, hopefully trained in the United States. That's pretty frightening if you think about it too. The future of our country rests in the classrooms of Black Mountain Elementary School and the schools in Anka, the schools in Transylvania County. We are resting our future in the hopes that our children will be well educated and well cared for, that they'll have enough to eat so that they can concentrate on their learning, so that they have enough clothing. In the Transylvania Times a few months ago, there was a disturbing article. A child was interviewed in one of our schools in Transylvania County, and he was talking about food in his home. And in the article, he said he had hoped that it was a particular day of the week because that was the night he got to eat dinner. It was his turn to eat dinner. Thank you for correcting me. Those were his words. Now, my opponent tells us that the economy is getting better, that people are doing much better here in North Carolina, the unemployment rate's going down, and we should all be hopeful about that because things are getting better, and they're getting better all the time. Well, all the while they're getting better, in Polk County, the free and reduced lunch rate at school, an indicator of poverty, is still 62%. Same in Transylvania County. I don't remember the number in Henderson County right now. If things are getting so much better, why are our kids still having to eat lunch either free or at reduced rates? If the economy is better, why aren't our children doing better? Mark, how's your appendix?
Good, I hope.
You hope so. Because someday you may walk into a kindergarten classroom, Mark, and look at a little tiny child, a little cute thing down there, and you're going to say, son, someday you may be looking down at me taking out my appendix. Do you want that child to be well educated?
He better be.
He better be. We have an obligation to Mark to take good care of his appendix over here and have the best kid in the world trained and educated in North Carolina who can take care of his appendix. My campaign, coming back to your original point, tell us about your campaign. My campaign has focused on two fundamental issues. One is justice. The issue of justice. Who is voting? How are we keeping people from voting freely and easily? Why are we trying to deny people the access to the polls that we have, as Democrats, have worked so hard to be sure that people get, that people have risked their lives and died for? Why are we trying to restrict that? Medicaid expansion. What is the advance? How is our state advanced by denying 500,000 people medical care? 500,000 people, and their children, by the way, who we need to come to school healthy. How does that make our state stronger? It doesn't. It makes our state weaker because when people are healthy, they can work. And when people can work, they can take care of themselves. And they don't need us to do it for them.
That's right.
So we're talking about a justice issue here. Medicaid expansion, unemployment insurance. We could go on and on and on with the list. I actually have two people, thank goodness, who are good stewards of our state sitting in this room right now. They know what these issues are better than I do, 100 times better. So justice. The other issue I've been focused on is a true belief that when we all win, we all win. That when we lift people up, everybody benefits. When we have strong unions, our middle class grows. When we have people working hard together to lift up a minimum wage that is a livable wage for people, they do better. And when they do better, everybody does better. When we all win, we all win. My campaign has been focused on these two issues, these two focal points, since I started at the end of last March. I have run for political office before. In terms of progress, first time I ran as for school board in Transylvania County. We had 10 candidates. I finished 7th. It was a tough race. The second time I ran, I finished 3rd. I thought that was much better. Of course, only 4 candidates are running. So I don't know if I did better, but it felt better at the time to finish 3rd. I'm really excited to know that this time I can't do worse than 2nd place. Now, hold that thought, because something amazing happened just the other day when I was campaigning. I went down to Polk County. I spent a lot of time in Polk County, people. I went down to Polk County to their county commission workshop. Lake Adger's in trouble. It's an important body of water there that was invested in and built by the people of Polk County years ago. The county commission, all Republicans, want to do business with Campobello and Inman. Their water company wants to come up and basically take away the rights that the people of Polk County have to Lake Adger, to the Pacolet River, the Green River, and the Broad River. And in exchange for doing that, they'll build some water lines. And then as soon as they're built, their responsibilities disappear. Anything goes wrong, any problems, everything falls back on the people of Polk County. I was interested in that. I thought that was disconcerting, to say the least. You know, concerned about water as I am with fracking and with the environment as I am. Also a justice issue, by the way. But I listened to them talk, and I left that building that night. And the very next morning, I called up Roy Cooper's office. And I said, these guys are in a big hurry to get this passed, and it's something that can be talked about for months or years. The Democrats down there don't mind doing business with Inman, and they don't mind doing business with Campobello. That's not the issue. The issue is haste, and the fact that the agreement that the Republican commissioners seem to want to have in place says that in the case of drought, Inman and Campobello get first rights to that water. They're concerned about that. They find that to be unacceptable. Well, Roy Cooper's office said they really couldn't help very much, but I put them in touch with the one Democrat on the county commission, Ray Gasperson, good guy. You would have thought I hung the moon for them, because the next day I got an email, a Facebook message actually, from somebody who said, Norm, we appreciate what you're doing to try to help. Nobody else seems to care. Thank you very much. You've got my vote. And I said, holy cow, somebody I don't even know is going to vote for me. All I need now is another 19,999. And I've got this iced. I think I'm running a competitive race. I don't know if my opponent does or not. But every place I go, I get a positive reception. People are kind. I spend a lot of time on the road. For those of you who don't know, I'm a school principal, so I do what I can at nights and on the weekends. But as my wife will tell you, every night, every weekend, I'm out wherever I can be, whenever I can be. Fundraising. I was concerned about fundraising for a long time until I read the report from the last quarterly report. I out-fundraised my incumbent Republican opponent, Chris Whitmire. And I thought, holy cow, where did that come from? Because I never expected to see that in the newspaper, and I probably could have found out myself, because I like to sneak in there and look at the Board of Election stuff. But the truth of the matter is things are going well for my campaign. I've got stuff going out, information going out, did 21,000 mailers, some of which got a very positive response, might I add, which shocked me, but they came back with some positive things. And more important than that, I have met and gotten to know hundreds and hundreds of decent, hard-working, caring people. And when I think about people going to vote and people who don't know me personally pulling the proverbial lever saying, I'm voting for Norm Bossert, the responsibility, the sense of responsibility I feel towards them and the sense of gratitude for the trust that they're willing to put in me, it makes my day, my year, my life. It is the most important thing in the world that's ever happened. And I am grateful beyond anything I can even express in the English language to people who've come out and worked hard for me. I walked in this morning and people were talking about the telephone calls. You all were making phone calls when I showed up this morning. Holy cow. So what more can you say about people? It's a willingness to work for change and change that we need in North Carolina. We can do better, everybody. We can do better. Thank you.
Now, Norm, you talked for quite a while.
I apologize. I said I was loquacious.
That'll be edited down to about 3-4 seconds. I just want to let you know.
Well, that's probably all it was worth listening to.
Hey, we're running about on time. We got 2 candidates left, but before we bring them up, I'll go back to what we're doing here. Avram is going to edit this thing. We're going to blow it out on Monday, Tuesday, and after this thing is over, it's scheduled to end at 4. Yuns go eat. If we get done before then, Yuns go eat. We're going to shut that door. We're going to phone bank till 8 o'clock tonight. But as well as editing for your speech, what we're doing, it's a lost art in the mountain. It's telling the story. And Avram, if you'll edit it that way, get the best. You're telling the story, and we're going to get Yuns out there to the people. You do it through speech, but you also do it through song. And Dan has done a great job of writing up some songs, using some old labor songs. So we want to get some more of those in this edited that Avram's going to do to blow out. So Dan?
Let's get this.
You want to go?
I can do that. I can do the song if everybody's going.
All right, Dean?
I'll do one at the end.
I'll tell you what, we could have Joe Sam dance at the end of his. But Dean Hick, and Dean's way out there, but we know where you're at.
Appreciate the fact that y'all are having me here today. It means a lot because working man is the base of my campaign, actually. I wish Jane hadn't had to leave because we've crossed paths so many times, and she always gets to talk first, and that is so hard to follow. So I just wanted to ask her before she left where she's going to be the next couple of days, because I ain't going to be there. But folks, let me tell you something. Early on in the campaign, I read something, and it was from a Republican. I can't remember who it was, but it was so poignant to what we're talking about. And the statement was made: the Republicans now have control. They can govern for a long, long time, or they can rule for a very short time. And the Republicans in Raleigh chose to rule rather than to govern. Now, I want to talk to all of the candidates here as well, because I've gotten to know a lot of you over the time. And I know what you're going through because I'm going through the same thing. You're not being hit on a record. You're being hit on a personal side. We're all getting the mail-outs talking about how bad we are and how all the things that we have done in our past, and it's all personal, because those folks have nothing to stand on as far as their record goes. They can't stand up and say, I took a stance against fracking. I took a stance for the environment. I took a stance for public education. They can't say that, folks. And so the only recourse they have is to slander and slam and hit on us for all that it's worth. Just this morning, a friend of mine came up and said, I will cut you a check for $750 if you will go to the radio station and if you will put out ads back at those people for what they have said about you. And I said, no. So much I appreciate the offer. But let me tell you why I'm not going to respond. First and foremost, I made a promise early on, clean campaign, stick to the issues. And I've done that the entire time. Number two, if I make a response to that, it could give some credence or credibility to what they're saying, and that's just not true, folks. They are, at very best, terrible distortions of the facts. Number three, if I do that, and I go to Raleigh, the people are getting the same thing that they've got now. And I refuse to let that happen. I will go to Raleigh, I will go clean. That's my goal. If the people of Western North Carolina, and especially Haywood, Madison, and Yancey County, look at what they have now versus what they could have in Raleigh, that's who makes the decision. And I want the people to make that decision. The people of 118 are going to make that decision. If it's for me, well and good. But I will tell them this. If they listen to what's out there, not just at me, but of all the candidates that are out there, if they listen to that and they vote based on that, they're just as big a victim as we are from all of that. So having said that, I really and truly appreciate being here. I thank you so much for all the support that you've given us. I can't tell you how much it means to me. The friends that I have made, the people that I have talked to, makes it very, very strong for me. I'll never forget it. We don't know where we're going to be Wednesday morning. We don't know which side we're going to be on. But I can tell you this much right now. We have made a statement. Those folks in Raleigh cannot go back to what they've been doing because the people are going to speak. Win or lose, the people are going to have a say, and the folks in Raleigh know they can't pull the shenanigans that they've been pulling because there is a day of reckoning, and it's coming. Folks, it's coming. Thank you again for having me. I really appreciate it.
Okay. All right, down to our last candidate already. He's the man in black, wears the hat, always been there for us. Joe Sam Queen.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate all the good words from all the candidates, all the union activists that are here today. I appreciate your work. Again, I agree with Dean Hicks. It's really about the working men and women. That's why I run. That's why most of these candidates here are running. What I can tell you is about business. If you want to help business in North Carolina, help their customer. Yeah. My number one issue is jobs. Jobs for working men and women, decent pay, and a good job, so that they can stay in Western North Carolina, raise their family. Their families can be part of our community and our leadership and our future. Without jobs, we don't have a future. The working men and women are the future of Western North Carolina. And this legislature has historically killed 40,000 plus jobs. 40, not 40, 140. Let me get my numbers right. They will stagger you. They have denied 3.5 billion of our citizens, our constituents, ourselves, our neighbors, our federal tax dollars from coming back to North Carolina. North Carolinians pay $66 billion of federal taxes. And we are not getting back $58 billion in this state. In the previous administration, we were cash positive on federal taxes. We were getting more federal taxes to North Carolina than we were paying. Now we're in deficit. Why? Because of the absolute irresponsible government. McCory, Tillis, Berger, the likes of them, Davis, Ramsey, Moffitt, Presnell, they're all killing their very folks that they represent. For every $1 million we lose of our federal tax dollars that we pay, we pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and the republic for which it stands, and we pay our taxes. And we cannot get them to come to help who? To help the unemployed, those who have lost their jobs through no fault of their own, through the George W. Bush recession, and it's still not recovered. There are fewer jobs today in North Carolina than there were in 2008 when that recession began. There are 40 to 60,000 fewer jobs today. We haven't recovered. There's 250,000 more workers. Our population has grown, so there's more workers and fewer jobs. We lost 500,000 jobs in the George W. Bush recession. 500,000. And we have not got back to positive yet. The governor and Tillis love to say our unemployment numbers have come down more than any state in the nation, they like to say. Well, why? How did that happen? Because the unemployment number in the numerator, to figure out the percentage of unemployed, you put in the unemployed. They have thrown a couple 100,000 off of unemployment benefits, and they don't count them. So the numerator goes down and the percent goes down. There's fewer jobs, and 70,000 more unemployed than when the recession began. And they call that success. Figures don't lie, but liars figure, is all I can tell you. That's the job story. Let's go to the $3.5 billion that they have thrown away of our taxes. And we've got nothing for it. It's gone to California and New York and Michigan. It's gone north of the Mason-Dixon line. This is carpet bagging out the wazoo. And North Carolinians need the job. Our neighbors need the jobs. Jobs. You want to help business? Create a job holder. So for every $1 million we lose 20 jobs. So 3.5 billion, that's not in dispute. That's 600 million of unemployment benefits, emergency unemployment benefits. North Carolina, the only state in the nation that denied them to their citizens last July, and we lost $600 million to the unemployed. And 2.9 billion in the last 2 years of Medicaid expansion denied low-wage workers. These are working people that make less than $7.50 an hour who we've paid for their health care. The first time in history they would have had health care, and we've lost it. We've lost the jobs. Half of those jobs are health care jobs, good jobs, providing the health care that the Medicaid brings in for those 498,000, almost a half a million low-wage workers would have health care. They would have mental health. They would have preventative health care. They'd have primary health care. And we would have the jobs. In my district, Haywood, Jackson, and Swain, it's over 800 health care jobs. 800 in Haywood, Jackson, and Swain. Good jobs. We've lost those jobs. We've lost them. So when you take $1 million, lose 20 jobs per million, that's 3.5 billion. That's 70,000 jobs lost. If we would have received our 3.5 billion, we would have made 70,000 jobs, 20 jobs per million. That's a 140,000 job decision that these ignorant Ramuses have run down our throat. Now, how can working men and women vote for these rascals? They don't know the facts. They do not know they need to know the facts. That's the camel they've swallowed while they squint at a gnat. And it's hard. North Carolina would be thriving. We are a great state. We would be thriving if we had some intelligence in the General Assembly, in the governor's mansion. But we don't. let me talk about unemployment benefits, because it's been a they have broken the social contract with the working men and women of this state. I was in the General Assembly when this great George W. Bush recession hit. We had a balanced budget when we came home in July, and by September the recession began and Wall Street began to hemorrhage, and the mortgage banking went down the tubes because it had been deregulated by these Republicans, and they ruined the most stable financial instrument in the world, the American home-owned mortgage. They ruined it out of deregulation. Well, we went into a recession, and by the time we got back the next January, our revenues were off 40%. A balanced budget and a great recession, and revenues off 40%. If we hadn't had the federal stimulus that the Obama administration gave North Carolina that spring, we got a fabulous stimulus by May. He got sworn in January. By May, we would have had to close the public schools, the universities, and community colleges in North Carolina, because we did not have the revenue and we had no place to go get it. This was a 500,000 job lost recession. Now we've made up almost 400 and some thousands of those jobs. We have. We're not up to where we were when the recession began, but of those jobs, 58% of them are below the North Carolina average, and fully a quarter of the jobs replaced in this recession are less than half of the North Carolina average. North Carolina's workers have a lower wage today across the board than they did when the recession began. So we are 6 or 7 years out, and the wages are lower than they were when the recession began. That is the job leadership in this state. Now, you want to help the working man, you stand behind him. Fair wages. What have they done when they eliminated unemployment benefits? 58% of your benefits have been cut for unemployment. 1/3 of North Carolinians receive unemployment in their lifetimes. We hope you never do. It's insurance. You hope you never have to get it. But 1/3 of North Carolinians get it. Before this great recession of George W. Bush, North Carolina was the 5th lowest in the nation in unemployment uptake. North Carolinians like to work. We don't like to be on the dole. We like to work. But if somebody trashes our economy, you need unemployment benefits. Right now, we're not in the position to face another downturn because there are no benefits. There are no benefits. You used to have 26 weeks. You've got 10 weeks. 10 weeks. On the 11th, you do not have suitable pay. You have to take any job at the Employment Insurance Commission. If you were an architect like myself and your construction was tanked by this recession and you don't have a job, on the 11th day, you will clean toilets at Harrah's in the middle of the night, or you will lose your benefits. That's why the numerator has been cut 200,000, and they can claim that unemployment, the percent of the unemployed is better. It's not better. The jobs are not there. The recovery is not there. The wages are lower. That's the job story in North Carolina. And workers need to rally and throw these rascals on their head, because North Carolina was not on the dole. Our workers were not taking advantage of the system. No, sir. We just have a poorly run state that's not creating the jobs that they can go to, and that is not promising. That's jobs, and I'm not included in that 140,000 jobs, the education jobs they've cut. In this session of the legislature, this session that I've been down there as a one-legged man at an ass kicking, I've been down there. They've cut 12,000 public educators. They've cut community colleges, students, $800 per student per year. They've cut public education students, 400 jobs, $400 per student. They've cut the university, the great University of North Carolina, $2,000 per student. That's what they've done. And they like Jim Davis. I was at a debate. He said, we're putting more money than ever, state money. The only way they can say that is they eliminate the stimulus that the federal government gave us to keep our schools and our universities and our community colleges open. If you take that out, then it does look like they've been raising the federal share. But the actual education dollars have gone down, down, down. And that is the real story, not the deception that they are pumping. So, Citizens Unite, let's get behind a change in this legislature. Let's elect a majority that is working for the people, not trying to undermine their salaries and their families. I'll say this to the working man. One moment. The working men and women. I will say this about the working men and women of this state. 20% of you live in mobile homes. They have put a full 7-cent sales tax on the purchase of a mobile home. Yeah, that's for the little guy. Now, what does the guy pay in sales tax who buys a McMansion up in Cashiers with Mr. Meadows as his real estate agent? Zero. No sales tax on the McMansion, 7 cents on the guy with the mobile home. They have put 7 cents on your entertainment, 7 cents on your service. They have eliminated the earned income tax credit, and as a consequence, the tax policy group in this state have determined that 80% of North Carolinians have had their taxes raised. Only a Republican can cut every tax rate and raise your taxes. And it again, it's about equality and equity. Who is paying their fair share? At the business level, they have cut the business tax. But 99.5% of the tax cuts for business have gone to the 0.5% of the business. Big business. The top 200 corporations in North Carolina got an average of $1 million apiece in tax cuts. $1 million each. $200 million for the top 200. There's 77,000 corporations in North Carolina. The little guy didn't get squat. He got 7 cents on his electric bill. How he likes that? He got 10% hike on the same electric bill thanks to Duke Energy and McCory and the like. Yeah, if we want a strong state, we have to support education. There's no way without good education. We need to support low-cost energy. Low-cost energy drives the economy. They're working for high-cost energy every day. There's not a strategy they have. Trickle down has been voodoo economics since the first Bush. It's still voodoo economics. And to waste $3.5 billion is just beyond the pale. So work hard. It matters. It matters this year. It matters in 2016. This is a long war, boys and girls, men and women. We won't win it this time. Maybe we get a veto-proof something or other. I don't know. But it's who you're vetoing. You got McCory. He's your puppet to move it forward, so we won't get much out of that. But we can shame him because he could stand up to these rascals, which he claims he can't now. But we need a Democrat governor and we need a Democrat majority by 2016. So that's what I'm working for. I'm working today, tomorrow, Tuesday, and I'm working every day to 2016 when we can take this state back. Thank you.
One of the things we want to do is put together a proposal to talk about how music and the mountains come together. Nobody can speak to that better than you. How do mountain people use music to express who they are, and how can we do that politically? Preach on.
Well, I love your ballads, and we've got to keep them simple. and to the point. My campaign slogan is, let's all join hands in one big circle. Again, I am working, I'm not working for Democrats or Republicans or independents. I want a job for everybody. You know, I used to serve Mitchell and Avery County as their senator, 8-1 Republican. And I said, get a job, you hippie. I'm up here to bring you a job. And get an education and help your kids. And get health care so you're productive. The number one and number two reason children drop out of school are health care related. First is unintended pregnancies. Well, if we got sex ed back in the classroom, but if you got their mothers to have health care, which is what expanding health care, working moms would have health care. They could go with their daughters and their sons to their pediatrician. They could all be covered. We could have visiting nurses and health care delivered and work on that. The second one is untreated mental health in the child's family. It can be addiction, it can be depression, it can be the child or the parent, but anybody in that household, they're 400% more likely to drop out. Well, expanding Medicaid would bring mental health services with mental health jobs paid for with a revenue stream that we've already paid to these 498,000 families. And that's 80% of the dropouts are attached to those two causes. And without education, what do we offer? But so, dance together, circle together, work together for everybody. And convince folks that it's not guns, gays, and God. You know, you can preach on the least and the last, and that's the gospel. And the warnings for the rich are everywhere in the gospel. So you can preach on God, and we're not taking anybody's guns away. And liberty and justice for all is the only thing you should be standing for as a politician. You don't have to be a Democrat or Republican to get that straight. You know, it is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and I'm all for it. Thank you.
All right, two more closing remarks and then we're out of here. I want Mary B to come up and speak directly to the membership in Western North Carolina and what the state AFL-CIO is doing, because she's going to be on camera and I guarantee it'll be in the video. Okay?
Thanks,
you
Mark.
do that one, then I'll do one.
Just to the candidates, I want to say on behalf of the state AFL-CIO, certainly appreciate your willingness to stand up to working folks. But mainly I want to talk to our union members because I'm feeling a real sense of urgency about this election. I've been stepping out because I'm getting phone calls like, are y'all making calls? We need to be making calls now to turn out folks for this election. Because we've got to make sure that our members understand what's at stake. This election is about the future of the middle class. It's about the future of the American dream. You know, in election season, everybody wants to talk about those issues, guns and God and gays that divide us. But when we're calling our members, it's about what unites us. Because it doesn't matter if we're black, white, or brown, Democrat or Republican. Almost all of us believe in the American dream. We believe that if we work hard, we should be able to build better lives for our families. But the unfortunate reality is that for too many Americans, they are working so hard every day and they can never get ahead. And folks, that's no accident. It's politicians like Tom Tillis who created policies that have driven down our wages, weakened our right to organize unions, and gutted our safety net. What people need to understand is that inequality, it didn't just happen, folks. It's not random or by chance. Inequality is a direct result of deliberate policy choices by our lawmakers. And what we need to be telling our members is that the good news is we as voters have choices too. And the choices are clear in this election, especially in the U.S. Senate race. Folks, Tom Tillis has a record that makes it clear whose side he's on, and it ain't the middle class.
No.
Cut public education by $500 million. Denied Medicaid to 500,000 North Carolinians. Cut those unemployment benefits on 170,000 of the long-term unemployed, and raised taxes on at least 900,000 working families by repealing the earned income tax credit. And remember, folks, what did Tom Tillis say when he first got the gavel for the opening session? He wanted to keep North Carolina the least unionized state in the country. And he tried to make good on that, introducing 3 anti-union constitutional amendments. If we elect Tom Tillis as our U.S. Senator, and he goes to Washington, you can expect more of the same, folks.
Amen.
He's already said he supports Paul Ryan's budget that would end Medicare as we know it and increased out-of-pocket costs for our seniors. And you may have heard he not only opposes raising the minimum wage, he thinks we should abolish it altogether, calling it a dangerous idea. And equal pay for equal work, forget that too, folks, because Tom Tillis, as Speaker, led the effort to kill an equal pay bill in the House. And he has said on the campaign trail that equal pay for women is nothing more than a campaign gimmick. Folks, we've suffered enough under Tom Tillis's failed leadership and under the leadership of all his minions in the legislature. North Carolinians deserve better. You and your members deserve better. And that's why I'm asking you, don't leave here today without hanging out and making some phone calls. We need folks to call today. We need folks to call tomorrow. We need folks calling Monday, all the way through Tuesday when the polls close. We have got to turn out our members because too much is at stake in this election. I'm asking all of y'all, help us make this election day the first step towards rebuilding the middle class and restoring the American dream. So how many union members here are willing to stay here and make some phone calls this afternoon? How many are willing to recruit some others to come on Monday and Tuesday and make calls? I've got sign-in sheets for you to take. Monday, that's what I want to hear. And you'll go back and you'll talk to some other Teamster folks and get them to come back, right?
They'll all be working.
Well, folks,
I'll bring you, but I can get hold of it.
well, folks, as Joe Sam Queen said, we're in this for the long haul. We're going to make some changes this year, but it's really about building to the future. But I'm confident if we all work together, eventually, North Carolinians, no matter where they live or what they do, are going to have good jobs, they're going to have living wages and labor rights. So help me make that possible. Thank you.
All right, we're closing out. The food's back there. Everybody eat it up. We bought it. It don't need to go to waste. I want to make a direct quote to the union members out there. This film, what we're trying to do is a little history of Western North Carolina and its labor. We're also trying to promote labor-endorsed candidates to all our union members all across Western North Carolina. We represent the membership, the union membership in the 10th and the 11th district. The candidates you'll see on video, the speakers you'll hear later, they're all working for working class men and women. Folks, our membership is divided between Republican and Democrat. We don't endorse either side. We endorse the candidate on whichever side is for working men and women. Your paycheck is the number one thing that you need. Your paycheck ensures that you have the freedom to join, to do whatever you wish and enjoy a freedom. But your paycheck makes that possible. So when you vote, vote for people that support working men and women. If you haven't received a slate, please go to the North Carolina State AFL-CIO website, get that candidate list, and vote. Union members, vote. Thank you.